In 1986, Alpine Manor was a quiet nursing home in Walker, Michigan. It was a place for the elderly and those with Alzheimer's. Two women worked there as nurses' aides, Kathy Wood, a 24-year-old mother, and Gwendolyn Graham, a 23-year-old who had just moved from Texas. Gwen and Kathy began an intense, volatile romantic relationship. Their bon love, but an odd-active obsession. Gwen was the dominant personality, frequently self-harming to get Kathy's attention. Soon, their private games turned toward the patients they cared for. To prove their devotion to one another, they decided to commit a crime that would bind them forever. They began a murder game. They chose victims whose initials, when put together, would spell the word murder. They targeted the most vulnerable residents, those who couldn't speak or resist. In early 1987, their first victim was an 89-year-old woman with Alzheimer's. While Kathy stood guard at the door, Gwen smothered the woman with a washcloth. Because the victims were elderly and ill, their deaths were recorded as natural causes. No one suspected a thing. Over the next few months, 4 more patients died under mysterious circumstances. Gwen and Kathy would often celebrate after a killing by going out for ice cream, which led to their nickname in the press. They even took souvenirs from the victims to commemorate their shared achievement. The pair eventually broke up after Gwen started a relationship with another woman and moved back to Texas. Kathy, consumed by jealousy and guilt, began telling friends and family that she and Gwen had killed people at the nursing home. At first, no one believed her, thinking it was a sick joke. In 1988, Kathy's ex-husband went to the police. Investigators were skeptical. How could 2 aides kill 5 people in a busy nursing home without being caught? They exhumed the bodies of the suspected victims. While smothering leaves little physical evidence, the timing of the deaths was damning. When the police confronted them, the devotion that fueled the murders vanished. Kathy Wood struck a deal with prosecutors. She claimed she was just the lookout and that Gwen Graham was the actual killer. In exchange for her testimony against Gwen, Kathy was offered a reduced sentence. The trial in 1989 was a media sensation. Kathy described the killings in chilling detail, painting Gwen as a cold-blooded sociopath who enjoyed the power of life and death. Gwen's defense argued that Kathy was a master manipulator who had made up the entire story to get revenge for the breakup. Despite the lack of physical evidence, the jury believed Kathy's detailed accounts of the murder initials and the souvenirs. Gwendolyn Graham was found guilty of 5 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She maintains her innocence to this day. Kathy Wood, despite admitting to being an accomplice in 5 murders, was sentenced to only 20 to 40 years. Many felt she was the brains behind the operation and had manipulated the system to get a light sentence. The families of the victims were outraged by the discrepancy in their punishments. After serving 29 years, Kathy Wood was released from prison in 2020. She moved to South Carolina to live with her sister. Her release sparked renewed fear and protests from the victims' families, who believe a serial killer is now walking free among them. Psychologists point to this case as a rare example of shared psychotic disorder. Separately, neither woman may have become a killer. Together, their personalities created a perfect storm of narcissism and psychopathy, where murder became a twisted form of romantic validation. The victims were eventually identified as Marguerite Chambers, Edith Cook, Virginia Cheek, Alice Dutchers, and Belle Burkhard. Their families have spent decades trying to ensure that their loved ones are remembered for who they were, not just as letters in a killer's macabre game. The case also exposed massive flaws in nursing home oversight. Because the victims were expected to die, their deaths weren't scrutinized. It forced a national conversation in the US about the safety of the elderly in long-term care and the need for better background checks for staff. The ice cream killers remains one of the most disturbing cases of healthcare serial killing. It serves as a reminder that the most dangerous predators aren't always strangers in the dark. Sometimes they are the people hired to hold your hand in your final hours.